What's up, everybody? Josh Hartnett and Katie Sackhoff have a new movie out this weekend. It's called Fight or Flight, and so, of course, it's time for a review. I'm gonna get started with the cast here, not because I'm super excited about it, but because I want to get my bitching out of the way first. And, shout out to both Josh Hartnett, who locked in despite some of the ridiculousness in this movie, and also Katie Sackhoff, my Lady Bo-Katan, who carried the B plot in this movie that was, well, we'll get to that. Now, it's not like I'm going to sit around and name names here and call out every soulless performance I saw in this movie, but just know that the two I mentioned above get zero help, like almost zero help from anybody except for maybe one cast member. But even with that one, which I'm talking about the ghost in the movie, which is like the fake out villain, I guess, but his target, Hartnett's target, they're decent, but it's only good once it's after the identity is revealed. Anyway, moving on to, unfortunately, another complaint. The sound mixing in this movie and the sound design wasn't the best. Now, to be fair, I do want to be fair, this could have been, an issue with my theater because I wasn't in Dolby or IMAX for this movie, but there were multiple scenes in the first hour of this movie where I could barely hear a word that Josh Hartnett is saying, and there's barely any sound or music coming in over him. It was really strange. But with that being said, I want to get to the story here because it's where I can start giving this movie a few compliments at the very least. The biggest of those is the 20 or so minutes before we're on this plane. They were way more entertaining than they should have been, especially because it's not really an intro, it's a scene from later in the movie, which I don't know if this is just like recency bias talking in my mind right now, but I feel like 2025 has been a big year for movies just throwing, and I'm not saying 2025 invented this, but it feels like it's coming back big time this year where movies are just throwing scenes from later on in the movie at the beginning and then we jump back, but whatever. This was a perfect example of Josh Hartnett locking in and putting this thing on his shoulders. I did think Hartnett was able to carry a lot of this movie too, but once we get onto the plane, there was just a bit of a dry spell for me, especially because at this point we're jumping back and forth to Katie Sackhoff's company. I forget what he was even called. There was some tech company, and she used to be FBI, but whatever. I did not particularly love how this section of the movie was edited, and if you paid any attention to the trailers, this portion of the movie spoils everything, so that's fun. Then, and I had mentioned this part on Letterboxd actually right after the movie, but the toad venom comes into the picture, and this almost turns into an episode of Looney Tunes where Porky Pig trips balls. To be honest, I haven't decided, if I liked it or not in the movie. It was definitely weird, but I'd also be lying if I said there weren't some good laughs for me in there too. So it's this weird anomaly where this movie there's toad venom introduced and it takes the weirdest turn outside of the alcohol he had been drinking, but I don't even know what to say. But I know for sure that I wish I had some toad venom for the end of this movie because I can say for certain that I was not a fan of the ending. It's almost like the entire plane story was just like part one and they don't even give you any warning or tell you that it's part one, and we just cut off in the middle of a scene that was picking up an entirely new storyline that we knew basically nothing about. I mean, you can guess what it is. You assume it's Katie Sackhoff and her company coming after them and the machine and everything, but you don't know. It simply boggled my mind. Finally, I want to touch on the action, and this was good overall for me, but they take it to a level of gore late in the movie where, again, it almost gets too cartoonish. Entertaining, sure, but this is where the editing problems shine the most too in the action scenes. They have, for the most part, they just like 3x these fight scenes and speed them up, and it looks so unnatural for the majority of the movie. It was a damn shame. And so that's going to do it for my quick review of Fight or Flight. I was left disappointed with this one as it landed at a 5.5 out of 10 for me, and I had pretty high expectations because it looked like Bullet Train from the trailers, and I'm a pretty big fan of that movie. But drop your thoughts on this movie down in the comments below and make sure you have a great day.